The sound of metal echoed sharply in the garage that morning, mixing with the faint hum of an air compressor and the scent of engine oil. But underneath that familiar chaos, something deeper was brewing, a moment that would change several lives forever. Malik bent over the open hood of an old sedan, his hands smeared with grease and his eyes tired from working through the night. He wasn't supposed to be here this early, but he had promised himself that no customer would ever leave this place helpless, especially not someone who reminded him of his late mother. And when the frail elderly woman arrived with trembling hands and a car that refused to start, he didn't see a job. He saw a human being in need. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of compassion to change lives, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support keeps these stories of hope and humanity alive. Malik had been working at Redline Auto Repairs for barely 6 months. He was young, just 22, but life had aged him faster than his years. His father had been a factory worker, gone too soon in an accident that left Malik as the sole breadwinner for his younger sister. Money was always tight, and the boss, Mr. Harlan, a strict man with years of experience and little patience, constantly reminded him that kindness didn't pay the bills. Malik never argued. He needed the job more than anything, but deep inside, he couldn't silence the voice that told him helping others mattered more than profit. That morning, as the elderly woman, Mrs. Green, stood near her broken-down car, anxiety written all over her face, Malik saw her eyes filled with worry. She explained that her car had stopped working on her way to the pharmacy and that she couldn't afford repairs until her pension arrived next week. Malik smiled softly and said, "Let me take a quick look." He didn't care if she could pay or not. He knew how it felt to stand helpless with no one willing to help, so he replaced a small part, patched the leak, and filled her tank with the last bit of gas he had stored in his own canister. Mrs. Green's eyes welled up when the engine roared back to life. She tried to offer him her last few dollars, but he shook his head. "Just drive safe, ma'am," he whispered, waving her goodbye. He didn't know someone had been watching the whole time, his boss. When Mr. Harlan found out Malik had repaired the car without charging a dime, fury ignited inside him. He stormed into the workshop later that afternoon, his voice sharp enough to cut through steel. The younger mechanics froze in place, their wrenches hanging mid-air. Malik stood still as Mr. Harlan shouted, his finger jabbing an accusation, veins visible on his forehead. "You think this is a charity? You think we can run a business on pity?" The words stung, but Malik stayed silent. He tried to explain, but Harlan wouldn't listen. The confrontation grew louder until, in a final burst of anger, Harlan fired him on the spot. The room fell silent. The two apprentices in the background stared in disbelief. Malik stood frozen, tears filling his eyes, but refusing to fall. Mrs. Green, who had returned to thank him with homemade cookies, stood near the doorway, both hands covering her mouth in horror as she watched the young men lose everything for helping her. Her heart broke in that instant. Malik quietly removed his gloves, placed them on the bench, and walked out without another word. Days turned into nights, filled with uncertainty. Malik searched for work everywhere but was turned away again and again. Without references, no one wanted to hire him. The small amount of money he had saved quickly disappeared. His sister, unaware of what had happened, kept asking why he seemed so worried. He told her everything was fine, but the truth weighed heavily inside him. His dreams of one day opening his own small repair shop were slipping away. Meanwhile, Redline Auto Repairs began to feel strangely colder without him. The other mechanics noticed the silence in the mornings, the lack of laughter, the missing sense of teamwork Malik had brought. Customers began to complain, too. Malik's honesty had earned their trust, and without him, many stopped returning. But the real turning point came 3 days later, when Mr. Harlan received an unexpected visitor, Mrs. Green. She arrived with her cane, her soft lavender cardigan neatly buttoned, and a determined look in her tired eyes. She approached the boss, her voice trembling but clear. She explained who she was, the woman whose car Malik had fixed. She told him how that very same day after leaving the garage, she had been on her way to visit her sick grandson in the hospital. Without Malik's help, she wouldn't have made it in time. Tears filled her eyes as she recounted how that young mechanic's selflessness had allowed her to say goodbye before her grandson passed away that evening. "He didn't fix a car," she said, voice breaking. "He gave me something I can never repay, a final moment with someone I loved." For the first time in years, Mr. Harlan's stern demeanor faltered. His face softened. His hands trembled slightly. He realized the depth of the mistake he had made. The image of him shouting at the young man replayed in his mind like a wound reopening. That night he couldn't sleep. He thought of his own son lost in a road accident years ago and how he had built this business to escape his grief. He had closed his heart to emotion, believing that discipline and control would keep the pain away. But Malik's kindness had pierced through that cold armor. The next morning, Harlan made a decision. He found Malik's address through one of the apprentices and drove there himself. The young man lived in a small, run-down neighborhood where the walls of the house looked tired and hope seemed to hang thin in the air. When Malik opened the door and saw his former boss standing there, he froze. He expected anger, maybe humiliation, but not the look of remorse in the older man's eyes. Mr. Harlan admitted he had been wrong. He apologized sincerely, something he hadn't done in years. He offered Malik his job back, not just as a mechanic, but as the new assistant workshop manager, recognizing the integrity and humanity the young men brought to the workplace. Malik was speechless. Tears welled in his eyes, and he nodded slowly, unable to find words. When he returned to the garage, everyone gathered around, clapping and smiling. Mrs. Green was there too, standing proudly, her hands clasped to her chest, whispering prayers of gratitude. The tension that once filled that space had vanished, replaced by something warmer, brighter, more human. Malik went back to work that day, fixing engines and restoring hope, not just in cars, but in hearts. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the power of kindness, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to Kindness Corner for more real emotional stories that prove goodness still exists in the world.